All right, welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at this Yahoo Sports article about Pacman Jones, Adam Pacman Jones, former NFL cornerback, and he recently came out and he said he cheated on drug tests throughout his entire career, which isn't exactly a new thing for the NFL. But
Right.
what makes this interesting is that she claims to have never used his own urine.
Yeah, he says, I cheated the program really well. So for those who might not know or don't remember Pacman Jones, he had a great NFL career, but he also was known to have some issues off the field. And
Yeah.
so that actually led to him being in the NFL's drug program and being, tested very regularly. And even with that, he's claiming that he was able to get away with never once using his own urine, which really does raise some questions about
Yeah.
the program.
I mean, he went on Deion Sanders' show. Deion Sanders, primetime, Hall of Famer, and he went on his show and really was adamant about it. And Deion's like, man, they're watching you, they're watching you pee. I don't know how you could get away with that. And he's like, oh, there's ways, man. There's ways.
Well, and it really brings up, it's not even whether he's telling the truth or not. It's like, what does that say about the NFL if it is possible
Yeah.
to get away with that? I mean,
He almost let the cat out of the bag when he was talking about the cups they use and how, he was about to say something and Deion's like, whoa, 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 hold on. You can't give away all the secrets.
right, yeah. I mean, the NFL, they declined to comment, obviously, on Pacman's accusations, but their drug policy from 2018, which would have been the one in place when Pacman was playing, clearly states that, if you try to alter or substitute or tamper with a test, that is considered a positive test and you are subject to discipline. So it makes you wonder, was the NFL aware that this was happening?
Right.
And if so, how widespread is it?
How many guys are doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, because if there's a way, there's going to be guys trying to figure it out, especially when you're, millions of dollars and your livelihood is on the line.
Well, right. And it kind of speaks to the bigger question of the balance between player privacy and the NFL's need to maintain the integrity of the game.
Yeah.
Where's the line?
For sure. And speaking of integrity of the game, that leads us to another fascinating part of this story, and that's the NFL's ever-evolving stance on marijuana. And it's really kind of been loosening up over the years, right? I mean, when Pacman was playing, the limit, I think it's like 35 nanograms per milliliter. Now it's like 10 times that. It's like
Right.
350
Yeah, that's right.
nanograms per milliliter. I mean, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, 35 to 350. It seems like you said, the NFL is kind of loosening their stance on marijuana, and it's not just the NFL. I mean, this is a trend we're seeing across professional sports in general.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's likely due to, society's views on cannabis changing, but also, there is a growing understanding of the potential benefits. I mean, you hear a lot of athletes now, even current players, talking about using it for pain management and for recovery, especially with all the concerns about opioid use and things like that. It's
Yeah.
kind of become a viable alternative.
Yeah. And this is what's so interesting is that this ties right back into what Pacman's been saying, right? He's arguing that marijuana shouldn't even be tested for because it doesn't enhance your performance. It doesn't make you run faster or jump higher.
Right.
It doesn't make you a better quarterback or whatever. And he even points out that the NFL has no problem with guys taking opiates or other prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Which we know can have far more detrimental side effects.
So it's a good point. Begs the question, is cannabis actually helpful for athletes? I mean, or are there risks that we need to consider? I mean, it's something worth looking into.
So is there any truth to this? Like, is there any science behind what Pacman's saying?
Yeah.
Does cannabis actually help players?
Well, the research on cannabis and athletic performance, I mean, it's kind of all over the place, to be honest. It's still really early, and there's not a ton of hard evidence. But, some studies suggest that it can be helpful for pain management, and that could indirectly lead to better recovery and maybe even improved performance, just because, if you're not in as much pain, you can train harder and
Like, you can recover quicker.
Exactly.
You're not as sore.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But on the other hand, there's also research that shows some potential downsides. Like there's concerns that cannabis use could affect lung function and cardiovascular health, and even cognitive function, and all of those things could actually hurt an athlete's performance. So
Right.
it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so maybe a gamble then. I mean, there's good and bad, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. And to make it even more complicated, it seems like the effects really depend on the individual, like their physiology and also like the specific strain of cannabis they're using and how they're even consuming it. So
Yeah.
it's not a simple answer. There's a lot of nuance here.
It's not just black and white.
Exactly.
There's shades of gray in there.
Right. And that's where the ethics of it all and the policy considerations, that's where it gets really tricky because if there are potential benefits for athletes, but there are also potential risks, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's not just about, does this make you physically better at your sport?
Yeah.
It's about the player's overall health and well-being
Yeah.
and long-term effects.
Right.
It's bigger than that.
Right. Yeah. And then from the league standpoint, you also have to think about fairness, right? Like if some players are using something that could potentially give them an advantage, even if it's not a direct, physical enhancement, it still might create an uneven playing field. And that's something they got to wrestle with too.
So is the NFL's kind of zero tolerance approach, is that really the best way to handle this? Like, should they be looking at maybe a more nuanced approach, like a harm reduction model or something like that?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, it's something that the NFL and really all professional sports leagues are having to deal with right now is how do you navigate this kind of changing landscape of cannabis use and what does it mean for the sport,
Yeah.
The science is changing, social attitudes are changing, the players themselves are becoming more vocal about it. So,
It's a moving target.
yeah, it's definitely a moving target.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't ignore it, especially with Pacman coming out and saying all this. I mean, he's really kind of throwing a wrench in the whole thing.
He is. He's not just saying, "Hey, I cheated." He's really calling into question the whole system, the foundation of these policies.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, if you're going to test for weed, why aren't you testing for all these other things that players are doing
Yeah.
and things that could actually be more harmful?
Exactly.
He's stirring the pot.
He is. Yeah, and I think his willingness to talk about this now, even though he's not playing anymore, I think it shows that there's a real frustration with the way things are. And he's not just trying to, get attention or anything. He's trying to really have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
He's trying to get people thinking.
He's trying to start a dialogue.
Yeah, and I think he's succeeding because this whole thing has really, really sparked a debate about drug testing in sports in general. It's not just about, catching the cheaters anymore. It's about like what are we even trying to accomplish with these policies?
What's the goal?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes you think, right? Like if you've got a player who's using cannabis, but it's not really making them like superhuman on the field, but they're able to manage their pain and maybe recover better. Is it really fair to ban it? I mean, what are the ethics of all this, right, when it comes to drug testing in pro sports? I mean, there's a lot to think about here.
No doubt about it. And it all kind of goes back to this bigger societal question about cannabis in general, right? Like, are we
Yeah.
talking about a recreational drug, a medicine? Where's the line between what an individual chooses to do and what these organizations like the NFL decide is okay?
It's a tricky one for sure. And Pacman, whether you like his style or not, I mean, he's definitely made things more complicated. It's not just about, catching the rule breakers. It's about, like you said, looking at the bigger picture and figuring out if these policies are actually working the way they should.
Yeah, he's forcing everyone to re-examine these assumptions that we've had for so long, right? And like you said, maybe it's time to think about a different approach, one that's a little more flexible, maybe considers the individual player a little more, and takes into account what we're learning about all these different substances and how our understanding of them is changing all the time.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around, but that's why we do these deep dives, right? To kind of peel back the layers and dig into these things, even when they lead to more questions than answers.
Exactly, that's it. It's that curiosity that keeps us going. Always asking questions, always trying to get to the bottom of things.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, on that note, I guess we'll leave it there for today. We'll let you all ponder these big questions. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep.